Are we done? Ladies and gentlemen, can everyone hear me? That's fine. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Miret Mabouk. I am the Deputy Director and Director of Research and Programs for the Rafiq Hariri Center for the Middle East at the Atlantic Council. Now, we have three very important women with us today to discuss a very important subject. It's the progress of women's development in the Gulf. Now, that may sound like a bit of a misnomer, because for every step forward we say that we've taken, there is going to be someone who's going to stand up and say we may be taking 2 steps back. So what we're looking at is what the challenges are, what the potential is, how far we've come, and how far we still have to go. So I'm not going to read out people's bios because you have them, but I will just give a very, very quick introduction. Ustaza Amal Al-Muallimi, on my left, is the Assistant to the Secretary General at the King Abdulaziz Center for National Dialogue and a board member of the Saudi Human Rights Commission. Dr. Hamda Soliti is the Secretary General of the Qatar National Commission for Education, Culture and Science. And over on the left is Dr. Lubna Al-Qazi, who's the founder and director of the Women's Research and Studies Center in Kuwait. So let's kick off. By the way, the hashtag for this event is being webcast, and the hashtag for this event is ACMENA. Anyone wants to ask questions? Right. So, ladies, thank you so much for coming today. Let's kick off with a question. I mean, since we're discussing development, let's kick off with a question. The last World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap Commission puts Gulf countries fairly low on the list. And I believe the first one is Qatar at in ranking 138 out of 171. Now, the rankings are split up in terms of gender empowerment, political participation, education. So Gulf countries do very well on education. There's a smaller gender parity on education, but not well on political participation or gender empowerment. So I'm going to kick off the question and ask to all three of you to start off with, and perhaps we can kick off with Dr. Soliti, since Qatar comes in first.
First of all, I would like to thank GCC Country Council to give me this opportunity to participate in this event, and also I would like to thank Atlantic Council to hosting this event with my 2 colleagues from Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. I will speak about, or I will give you a brief about education in GCC country first of all. Then I will go to the gender equality. As you know, the start of education in GCC country was on late on 19th century by a small kind of informal education. It's called Al-Katatib. Mm-hmm. And this is Al-Katatib was for literacy and numeracy, and it is guided and or led by Al-Mutawwa. This is Al-Mutawwa is a teacher who taught the students, both girl and boy together or separately. And the first one was in Qatar for women, guided by Amna Mahmoud Al-Jada, and it was also at the end of, or late in 19th century. After independence and discovering oil and gas, there is a huge improvement and a huge progress on the system of education. And this is not only on the design of the building or designing the curriculum. Also, it is go very deeply on the training of the teacher, on the training of principal, on the kind of the curriculum that given to the students, on focusing on the competency for the students, not only to learn them the knowledge only. It is expansion to different fields of building humans, building citizens. Also, it was include human rights in the curriculum, This major progress also goes to the facilities inside the schools to be more comfortable, to be more accessible for students with learning disabilities, also to be more rich for the students by activities, by center of resources, different resources, also providing ICT on the education, not only on method of teaching or as a tools in education, also in the management, on administration, on communication with the parents, and also the relationship between the families and the school become different. In the past, it was only there is no links between parents and the school. Now they engage and administrate the school. They are a part of it. They are not so far from the school.
Can I ask you something? Just to interrupt. So if you're saying that the parents engage more with the school, is that because parents are placing more of a premium on education than before? Is it because it's become more important?
Maybe this is one. The other factor is the system and the policy of the education now. It's changed. Mm-hmm. The policy of education it's changed. It is put the parents as a major partner with the school, with the principal of the school, with the teacher. They have a board of trustees. Mm-hmm. It is about eight of them from the social as a parent, and there is only 2 in the board of the trustees is from the school. Okay. There is more engagement for parents to administrate and to be as a part in the school. Also, there is a changing on the designing of the building of the school. Before it was open. Mm-hmm. Now it is a closed school. It is have many multi activities rooms, labs, laboratory, open area. Mm-hmm. The activities for the school also change. They give the students more time to have their own habits. They have their own interest.
Okay, so what we're hearing is that education is shifting slightly towards choice, perhaps, on education. So perhaps I can ask Dr. Al-Qazi, when we talk about choice in education, typically speaking, girls have been herded into studying literature, philosophy, music. Now, I understand that that's shifting slightly.
In Kuwait, prior to 2013, female students had to have a higher GPA mm-hmm. to go to the science colleges. Mm-hmm. And that was because there were fewer young men who were graduating from school with the same GPA. So it was kind of to make up for women joining, in greater numbers. Mm-hmm. In 2013, one of the graduates from higher school complained to the Constitutional Court that we are equal in the Constitution, so therefore this kind of discrimination is not permitted. And since 2013, women and men applying to Kuwait University have to have the same GPA. We have freedom in choosing what area we want to go to. And as I was telling Mirat a little earlier, the colleges of engineering are 90% females. The College of Dentistry and Pharmacy are 85% females. And medicine is 69% females. So, you hear of women going to education, social sciences, arts. That's not the case in Kuwait. There are more and more young Kuwaiti women moving to the sciences. In fact, the Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research, which is the highest body that conducts scientific research in Kuwait, is headed by a woman. And it's headed by a woman because she's able, she's not a token head, she's very capable, and she's an environmental engineer. So in Kuwait, we see more and more women entering into fields of medicine, pharmacy, and practicing what they study. So it's not taken as a degree, but it's an occupation that they will pursue later. So here really what we have is reverse gender gap. The gender gap is in favor of women and fewer men.
All right, so
And I'm sorry, I jumped into the question before saying hello to all of you and thanking you. As usual,
Because I
my
jumped
eye
into the
raced to what I want to say. So thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here and hopefully give you some more information of our part of the world. Sorry.
So, thank you. So then the question becomes, after we have more young women going into STEM research, now when they graduate, are there jobs for them, or is the same, if you want to use the word discrimination, the same considerations that went into a higher GPA for girls than boys before 2003, do those discriminations apply for the job market?
No. Women, once they qualify, they can practice what they have learned. We have more women as doctors than men, if you take Kuwaitis. We have more women in pharmaceutical as pharmacists than men. So they are pursuing the same area that they study, and there's no discrimination as far as wages. The discrimination would come, say, in other areas like social allowances, but we don't have a gender gap as far as salary, as far as choosing what you want to do. And I think in a way, this is changing now because most families are dual income families. So they know that the woman working as a doctor, as a pharmacist, would get more than if she went to the government sector.
So actually, you brought up an interesting fact, which I will ask to all of the panelists. So you brought up a point of discrimination on social allowances. Perhaps you could explain that, and then I would like to ask the rest of the panelists about more forms of discrimination in as far as they relate to progress. Perhaps you could tell us about the
well, that was the slip of the tongue.
It's my job.
It's something that we're pursuing in the sense that, Kuwait, as other Gulf countries, we have a lot of allowances for child allowance, we have the allowance for wife, for other things. So these allowances automatically go to the head of the family. And that's understandable, but we argue that if they're divorced, the woman should get, whoever has the custody of the child, should get the child allowance. So there are areas we're working on, and I think people are aware of it, and as long as we pursue approaching the right people to make these changes in these social allowances, we hope that it'll be rectified soon.
Thank you. So, Amal, you might have the toughest job on the panel today.
Yeah, I know.
So if we discuss girls' education in Saudi Arabia, and then we move on to other forms of participation in Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia ranks fairly low on the WEF index, does very well on education, but does not do well on political participation or gender parity. So why do you think that is?
Okay, let's go back to the beginning of education in Saudi Arabia for females. We started female education in 1965, 1966, I think. And before that time, we had very high educated women, but it was with the support of their families. They were sending their girls abroad to pursue their degrees in Egypt or in Lebanon or even in America and in Britain. So it was something, luxury for high standard families that can afford to send their daughters to get education. In 1964, with the starting of education in Saudi Arabia and public schooling for girls, and it becomes for everybody. Education is available and is there for everybody. Let's go to the population of Saudi Arabia. The population of Saudi Arabia, we have 51% of female and 49% 51 males and 49 females. So it's almost 50-50. In education, we have 52% of females more than men in the education fields. We go also to King Abdullah external scholarship program. You have the participation of a female there is higher and in better field or majors that they are going on, and also in higher education, in master and PhD, the numbers of girls are more than boys there. Now, how do I look to this? Is this that girls are doing better than boys? No, it's not like this. They are less distracted because the opportunities that they have is less, so they are holding tight to this opportunity and doing really good to achieve their goals and to come back with their degree and fight for their opportunity back home. When we talk about Saudi Arabia, I cannot speak as my colleagues here in Qatar and in Kuwait on the whole public opinion is one public opinion. We have different regions in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is huge and has different population, different cultures, different social backgrounds. So what apply in Jeddah, for example, does not apply in Najran or in Jawf in the south or the north of Saudi Arabia. So I cannot tell that all Saudis are the same or all the opportunities are the same for girls. But we'll talk about government standard. We work hard in the government to make it the same, to give a fair opportunity to everybody, to provide education for everybody. Now, what happened when they come back home, it depends on the social background, whether they support their daughter to go forward and to pursue her job without any restrictions. The government does not have any restrictions for girls' participation. It's all about traditional and social background of the society. So what we are doing now is we are trying to work on raising awareness of the importance of girls' participation. As I told you, 49% of the population are female. You cannot have them just stay at home. Another factor is really important is the economical factor. Saudi now is not the same Saudi 20 years ago, so it's a must now to work and to gain your support yourself and to help supporting your family too. So it's not easy now to have one person supporting the whole family. It has to be two of them working together. But at the end, I would like always to give the choice to the girls themselves to define and to decide what do they really want to do and help to support their decision and give them the freedom to choose whether they want to go to the labor market or they want to start their own business or they want to work from their house or they want to be moms, only moms, and this is a great job also. So this is the case in Saudi Arabia.
Thank you. So let me ask you something. You just mentioned you want choice for girls.
Exactly.
All right. So do we have, and it isn't the government's job to tell them what to do. Fair enough. Now, April the 17th, I think it was, there was an announcement that Saudi Arabia would be looking into dropping the guardianship for women on certain for certain factors. We still don't know what those factors are. Do you have any idea? I mean, because in some cases, some employers will not employ women without permission from a male guardian, even though the government says they don't need to.
Yeah, what happened now lately, last week or 10 days ago, we had this declaration from His Majesty, the King, to all government sectors that they should revise their regulations and find out if there is any discrimination against women or restrictions regarding women or asking for guardianship. They have to remove it immediately, unless there is a law on that. So we did our research and study as female because we were keen to hear this, and we found that there are only three domains that we need to work on. The first one is for driving, of course, and the second one is the right to issue a passport without the approval from the guardianship. And the third one is to join the external scholarship program without also approval from the guardian. So these are the three areas that are not clear yet, but going to the King announcement that within 3 months we have to revise all these regulations and try to adjust it to match and meet the treaties of human rights that Saudi is part of and have signed to these treaties and protocols. So what's going to happen within this 3 years? We are working. And we will still working until we get these 3 rights.
Okay, so I have some more questions on them, particularly on the human rights, but I don't want to keep you talking for a long time without coming back to the other panelists. So it's great to hear about the education, and it's great to hear that it will prepare Gulf women for many things. Now, the question is, will it prepare Gulf women for participation in political life, and particularly political participation? Because, I mean, Kuwait, for example, we had 3 women, 15 women, I believe, who contested in the last elections. One which won, and it's actually her 3rd time, I think, in parliament, but it's just one. Only 2 in Qatar. So, typically speaking, education is sort of viewed as the wedge, for cultural and social change. So we seem to be doing well on education. Why is political participation still lagging behind?
Mine?
Whichever one of you
Okay.
would like to start.
Well, in Kuwait, we don't have a party system. There's a hidden party system, in that the tribes have their own parties, the Islamic Brotherhood. We know who belongs where. There are no secrets. And these people have a network that supports their candidates, which women do not have. And I think we're one of the, we would rank highest in having the most elections in the world. You know, usually there's surprise election in 1 year's time, 2 years' time, we don't know when the next one will be. So women do not have, one, they do not have a network, which the men have. 2, they do not have the monetary funds to campaign and lobby and do what is necessary during the campaign. So the resources, economic resources, and the network is a big problem in Kuwait for women. Those who won, you know, we had 4 women win in 2009. Those who won then were women who had a lot of social exposure. When you say the last election, some of them were not known in society, and they stood in governorates where you had very powerful men. And therefore, that was a disadvantage. You have to know that in Kuwait, we need to awaken voters to vote for women, and that's what the center is doing, is that you should choose who is good for the country, not who belongs to your group. And that is a big problem, because women do not have the backing men have, and women as voters are more than men. Because see, men in the army cannot vote. And the army is totally men. The National Guard, again, cannot vote. So women are more as voters, but unfortunately not all of them will choose women. In the end, women do not stand in all the electorates. So I think the problem here is having your network and having the resources, and that is a big disadvantage. Otherwise, media is always favorable to women, and they have enough media coverage. Kuwait is small enough for them to be able to campaign. But it's these tribal groups that win because they have more, a stronger network and more, organized campaigns.
So, thank you. So that leads us into 2 questions. One, when you discuss economic research as being lacking, typically speaking, political candidates don't always have their own political backing. They're backed by someone else. So what we're saying is that women still don't have the ability to get financial backing.
Right.
But the other question, if
Yes.
I'm wrong, please correct me.
You're right.
And the other question is, as the founder of the Women's Research and Studies Institute, what are you doing about that?
Okay. We have plans to help more women enter into the parliament. We just signed a 2-year contract, or let's say work plan, with UN Women and the Supreme Planning Council. And the Women's Center is situated in Kuwait University, so it's not affiliated to anybody. It can be rational. It does not change with any ministerial change. We are planning to have political incubators. The plan in the next 2 years is on 3 things. One is political empowerment, another one is economic empowerment, and the third one is on eliminating violence against women. So as far as political, we're going to be working with different international organizations. MEPI came forward with a plan. UN Women, Ra'idat in Egypt, who've worked on campaigns of women. We are planning to have political incubators where possible or potential candidates will come forward. We will train them on how to have an effective campaign, how can they have an effective media exposure, what they can do as far as advocacy. The political incubator is one for the candidates. Another one is that we have just completed a study on voter turnout and whether they voted for women or not, or whether they voted at all or not, because there was a boycott by some of the parties, tribal, etc. And we want to see how we can change voter view of women as candidates. It has changed, but not enough, on seeing women as being effective parliamentarians. So there's going to be a campaign on raising, a media watch as well on changing the way voters view women. How can we train candidates, and also how can media be kinder to women? As you know, even here in your last campaign, how they treated Hillary Clinton was a good example of media, So here what we need is the media, voters, and candidates all to work together if we're going to get more women into the parliament.
Thank you. So on 2 questions, you mentioned political incubators and you mentioned work against essentially violence towards women. GBV, or gender-based violence, is a serious issue in the Gulf and in many Middle East countries. So I would quickly like to jump to that across all the candidates. Perhaps since you mentioned it most, we can start there and then move onwards.
Kuwait is very committed to SDG 5, which is gender equality. And there is serious work being done on having a shelter for women who have been abused. We are now trying to get statistics. Unfortunately, in most Arab countries, you do not really know the figures of women who have been abused. Women themselves, and that's even the case, you would say, in Western countries, women very often do not report that they have been abused. So we need to have a benchmark. We're working right now, there's a committee on having a shelter, which is with the Social Affairs Ministry, who is headed by a woman. And we are soon going to have a shelter for abused women. We are hoping, just like there has been recently a law for protecting children against violence, that there will also be a law passed that will protect women against violence. And it's really also raising, again, we come to raising awareness to men and women on why this cannot be done, because in the end, a woman is a human being, and when a woman is abused, you're really affecting the whole family. So it's raising awareness to what she can do, why he shouldn't do it, and why it should be reported, and whoever does it should be punished.
So is there cultural pushback? I mean, presumably the government is all for it.
Yes.
But you're seeing cultural pushback?
The cultural pushback is, I think, getting diluted. And there are a lot of lawyers, many lawyers, that are campaigning that we should move away from Abe. The thing of, you don't complain about, because unfortunately, as in most countries, the violence is committed by intimate family members, not by strangers. And it's not easy to go and file a case against your husband, father, brother, etc. But now, that is changing slightly in the sense that there are people that report it, there are lawyers that help them, and it's not just violence in the family, it's even more awareness about violence against domestics. So, the view of people now is that no, we cannot tolerate violence, and we need to do something about it. But there's always going to be resistance. And culture, yes, is a big handicap, but even that is changing.
Thank you. So, Amal, if we move on to gender-based violence in Saudi Arabia, whether it's against nationals or domestics, what structures, what institutions are there to help women?
But I'd like to go first to elections and participations for women in political domain. Yes, we have lately in 2016 the municipality elections, and I was a member in the supervisory committee that we, along with another two ladies with me, joined me. We made sure that everything is going okay and all regulations not discriminating between males and females. Both of them will have a fair and equal opportunity to participate. And for the good surprise that 21 women won. They were elected from the first time, and they had the whole support from their families, from their tribe, from the community. Most of the women, they did not win in Riyadh or in Jeddah, the main capital cities in Saudi Arabia, but they won from remote areas and small towns and small villages. It showed that the concept of having female participation is changing in a good way, and they got the support from their families, and it was really a good result for us. I mean, it was something from the first time have 20 women elected. It was a good achievement. Now, going back to domestic violence, we have the national program for preventing violence against women and against children. And we have the most powerful woman, Dr. Maha Al-Munif, who was awarded by President Obama in 2013 when he visited Saudi Arabia for being the strongest, one of the strongest women in the world. She started this national program, and it's going really well. We have a hotline 1611 to report if there is any violence against women or against children. In my personal opinion, I would rather to look at it as having violence against anybody, any human being, whether male or female. We have, of course, shelters for ladies, and we have programs to have them prepared to face life alone, or support them to have the decision of whether they want to continue or they want to get separated from their spouse or from the one who's torturing them and decide to start her own life. So we are supporting them. We are giving them training programs, financial aids, help them to start their project. We are monitoring their steps until we make sure that they are doing well in their lives. So we started this 10 years ago, maybe, and we have also regulations for this, and it's not something, it's zero tolerance to have violence against women or children in Saudi Arabia.
So we have zero tolerance, but if a woman goes to a shelter, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, was that she would often have to be released to a male relative. Is that still the case? Because if it is the case, then how easy
That's not for women who had been victims of violence. It's for women who were in jail, and before they go out, they have to. Yes, this is another case. But for women, yeah, go ahead.
But if they're being released from jail and the male relative declines to take responsibility for them, do they remain in?
This is a dilemma, and we are aware of this. It's a hard choice. Would we want her to go out and go back to the society and fall at the same mistakes again and go back to jail because eventually she's in jail because she committed something and because she's lacking, certain skills, or so should we throw her back again to the streets and just let her take her chances, or should we have a shelter, and I would like to call it like rehabilitation centers for them to help them to go back to society protected, and have like life coach along with them, help them to figure out what they are going to do. So actually this project I delivered 2 weeks before I came here, and hopefully it will be approved, and we will start it as a national program for ex-prisoners, females.
So just to understand, if she is, I mean, if a woman who is about to be released from prison is not, I mean, a male relative does not choose to take responsibility for her, there is an option for her to go into a shelter.
Yes.
But at some point, the male relative is going to have to take
No,
responsibility.
if he refuses to have responsibility, she goes to the shelter and she stayed there until she is ready enough to go out to the society and start her own life.
Who decides when she's ready?
Depends. First, we help her to find a job. This is
Okay.
number one. And then we will keep on monitoring and advising until we make sure that she's doing well and she can stand by her own self. So
Okay.
it has to be 2 years, maybe, or a year and a half. Depends on the skills and on the personality of the female herself.
Okay. So on jobs and economic participation, so I mean, in all three countries, women make up about half the economy. So the economic aspects of gender empowerment are huge. Now, Dr. Saleta, you'd mentioned that you thought that the private sector
Yes.
had a large role to play in moving women.
I want first to add to what my colleague said about the allowance. Salary in Qatar are the same. The allowance is the same. But when the wife and the husband have the same salary, they chose which one of them should have the highest allowance for housing and social allowance.
Okay.
If they agreed, maybe the highest one will take it, the wife, then she take it. If the husband, the highest, he will take it. But as you know, in Gulf, the man take care of the house, take care of everything. He is the one who finances the home and bring everything. This is the point. The second point about the private sector and empowerment for women. In Qatar, we have really political witness to empowerment the women. In government sector or in the private sector. If we go first to the private sector, we will see there is many aspects of this political witness. We will have there is many women run their own companies. They have their own project. They have the fund from government. They have the support from the government. They give them a booth in the exhibition. They give them also the facilities. They give them advice. And also we have the small and medium enterprises projects. This is under Ministry of Trading. And it is really a good initiative. And they are award the women that have a good project. On December, they are awarded many ladies. Sheikh Abdullah bin Nasser Al Thani award about maybe I think 10 projects. Most of them leads by ladies. Also, we have a social a society for businesswomen, and we have also a bank leads by women. This is in the private sector. In the government sector, we have, as you know, many of the leader position, lead by women, like a minister, president of universities, chair of boards, member of boards, SEOs. We have many position leads by women. As you know, Sheikh Moza bint Nasser give the women power to lead in the country. Because of that, we have the chance to be present all over the world. Now we have many ambassadors outside the country. We have also Sheikha Hassa Al Thani was for the reporter for disabilities, children with disabilities in the United Nations. And we have more. I think we in the future we have more and more. But what we needed, the awareness. The community need awareness to be sure that the women could lead. This is the gaps that we have. This is the challenge we have it. We need more awareness about the women, that the women have the competency that she could lead, that she has the skills that will provide her with a good decision. She could do a good decision. I think if we have the awareness, no, it's okay. If we have the awareness, and I will add to my colleague Dr. Lubna what she said about the funding and also the traditional ideas that we have it. This is maybe block her ways to be in a political position.
So thank you for raising that point. I think in all three countries, and perhaps particularly Saudi Arabia, although I could be wrong, traditional and cultural attitudes are significantly more difficult to change than laws.
Exactly.
So how much of an impediment is it in all three countries, and how can you work about it? Because at the end of the day, you lose political participation, you lose economic participation, and governments, and even if they're kings, are often dictated to by public opinion. So how difficult do you think it's going to be to continue to move forward with the reforms that you all know you need? Please.
For me? Okay.
For all of you, but
First of all, I would also refer to the questions of having women in high positions. I think it's a global challenge for all women all over the world. It's not something specifically for Saudi Arabia or for the Gulf countries or for the third world. We have seen lately in the elections that Hillary Clinton couldn't run, is not because she's less qualified or because she's not good enough to be to become the president. It's just being, first Clinton's wife and second being a female. So I think that was the main reason. On the other hand, in Saudi Arabia, we have achieved a lot of accomplishment in this field or in this domain. We had now women heading banks or huge companies, and we have general secretary assistant, just like myself, or a deputy minister, or but we don't have ministers yet. We don't have ambassadors yet, and we do really want to have this, but I don't want it to be given to us because I'm a woman. I will be nominated to become a minister, so that on the news they will show that Saudi Arabia has the first minister or the first female minister. I want to have it because I deserve it, because I'm qualified to have this position. And I think most of Saudi women thinking the same way I do, that we don't want it to be a quota or something given to us. We want to gain what we deserve, and we are working hard to achieve this. Now, going back to social awareness or the, the society rejecting the development, it's true, it happens. Education is a key element to change this attitude, the society attitude. And the other strong factor is the economical factor. And it's showed now more and more that, due to economical changes, that a lot of traditional concepts must change, or else you wouldn't be able to survive in this world. So this is another factor. What we are doing in Saudi Arabia and what we are doing in National Dialogue in particular, we are working on raising awareness. We are working on having training program, we're having brochures, we're having private channels, we have interviews, we have workshop, we have dialogue cafes all over the kingdom. We are bringing up issues and we are having people talk about it, and we try to play the role of media also. Social media is also playing a very important role, and it showed, you know, it's the pulse of the society. You can figure it out from Twitter in Saudi Arabia. Saudis are #1 users for Twitter in the rest of the world. I think it's our own parliament that we have there in Saudi Arabia. So if you follow Twitter or Saudi icons in Twitter, you can measure the pulse of the Saudi society and where are they going and what they are asking for. And the government is responding really well and trying to, you know, get as close as we can together from both sides. But unfortunately, what we have now is we have 10% from this side and another 10% from this side. They have the higher voices and they are conflicting together. And their conflict is delaying our achievement, the 80% that we are working silently, trying to develop and try to achieve our goals. What happened from these two extremist sides is kind of delaying what we are doing. The good thing that we are aware of this, and we know all the challenges and the obstacles that we are going to face, and we are working to change it. Lately, with the young leadership in Saudi Arabia, Prince Mohammed bin Salman, he's doing a lot of changes. I mean, I sleep one day and wake up in the morning, there are new things happening in Saudi Arabia, and then go back to it and wake up again, and another new thing. Believe me, it's faster even than we think. Or I had a plan for a workshop to discuss 5 issues regarding guardianship. And I was preparing for it for months with my group in National Dialogue. And then we slept, we woke up, oh, there is no guardianship. Okay, change the plan. Let's find another topic to work on. So this is what's going on. I mean, I cannot tell you in 5 years what will happen, because sometimes it's faster than we plan.
Well, I think it's good to hear. Let me ask Hadrathick and Dr. Lubna a quick question. And this will be my first before I move over to the audience. You've both worked with the United Nations. So how important is it to interact with international organizations like the United Nations? How difficult is it to interact with international organizations whereby the way people think, feel, norms are different? I mean, in some of them they've been easy. You've both worked on UNESCO, but of course there was some resistance to Saudi Arabia being named to the UN Human Rights Council. So, how important is it, and how easy or difficult is it to deal with international organizations? Perhaps we can start.
I think it's very important to work with international organizations because they have the experts that can help us. They have experience of best practices with other countries. So I think sharing best practices, having experts train us, because they may be at a different stage than what we are. They may have dealt with other countries that had similar problems or challenges. It's very important that, and I think women across the global world do that, is that they have a network, and it's very important whether it's UN Women or the UNDP or its organizations here or elsewhere in the Arab world to really learn from what they know, because we are just beginning in some areas. We need to learn from them, whether it's like, for example, we have gender auditing, something we want to know the number of women in different ministries, etc. This kind of gender budgeting or gender auditing is something we don't have in Kuwait. So these international organizations, we approach them, we put the ad out in the UN Women site, and they apply, and we get somebody to do that. Sometimes what we do is we get the other GCC countries to join us so that everyone can get, because we really have a lot of similarities and similar problems. So I think working with international organization increases the benefits that we can have from what they have learned in the past.
Thank you.
For me, working with the United Nations and with UNESCO was a great experience. In fact, UNESCO adopted a lot of our training programs in National Dialogue and make it, on the global level now. And I always quote from Mr. John Gagan, who was the former president of International Scout Organization. He said, we always have known Saudi Arabia as exporting oil, but now you're exporting dialogue and experience and training on dialogue. So this is something good that we are gaining. We are exchanging our knowledge, and we are trying to develop our programs to achieve the global level. I have one main principle that I always work with when I'm in an international organization is think global, act local. So, I take the main picture or the main principles, and then I adjust it to my society and have programs come within the society, because it's really, in Saudi Arabia, the society will resist anything from abroad, enforced from abroad. We want the change to happen from within the Saudi society and make people adapt it as, it's part of our culture and of our religion, and it's something that we are, we need to do it not because the rest of the world is telling us to do it, but because it's from our own culture and from our needs and from our society. So this is the way we are trying to do it, act, think global and act local.
So it's an excellent way to go, but how practical is it to think global, to think local on, for example, the consultative group in the UNHR forum?
Let me tell you something. Now, when you talk to the rest of the world, we should talk to them with international treaties and commitments that Saudi Arabia is committed to within these international organization. But when we go back to Saudi Arabia, they won't understand it if I said this is an international treaty and we have international protocol. I have to say that it comes from our Sharia, from our own laws, from our tradition, and adjust it to meet these conditions. So this is the way we are doing it.
Well, that works well. Thank you. So we're going to open it up to questions. Please just raise your hand if you have a question. And please just remember that there are people who want to ask questions, so try and keep it a question and not a comment. Let us know who you are, and we'll move on. Thank you. Lady over there.
Hi, thank you so much. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. My name's Rebecca, and I'm a student at Georgetown University. And I have a question for the entire panel. In the second wave of feminism, the feminist movement said the personal is political, and your actions and work seem inspired to do your work. And I was wondering if you would be willing to share a personal moment where you experienced gender discrimination in your country and could talk to how that has shaped your work. Thank you.
You want us to answer?
Yes.
I think the question was for all three panelists, right?
To be honest, I have never experienced gender discrimination, whether it was in education, going abroad to study, coming back and opening the center. So personally, I don't have an anecdote, and so I'd leave it to my friends.
Well, I have felt it this once. I wanted to do an operation in the hospital. That was 10 years ago. And I decided to do this operation. My husband was outside the country, so I just went to the hospital and I paid the money and everything, do the whole check. And the day of the operation, they were asking for my husband's approval. So I said, why is that? This is my money, my body, my health, and I'm here and I'm talking for myself. And I said, no, I will not do this. And I fought for that, and we found that there is no regulation telling them that they have to have the husband approval. It's just, they're thinking that they want to be in the safe side. So that's what I'm saying, that we need to raise awareness. We need to have ladies know their rights and do not accept when someone is asking them for something that's not legal. I applied for a visa in the France embassy in Riyadh, and they were asking for my husband's approval. I said, what? Now I have enough battles inside. Do you want also? They said, no, then your visa will be rejected. I said, let it be rejected. I don't want to go to France if they will not take me unless my husband approve my visa for them. So, we have to stand for our rights, and we have to know when to say no. and strong no. And if they don't take it, we'll take it to a higher level, and we will go and talk to the ministers or person who is responsible of this regulation. It's all go back to women themselves. They have to know their rights, and they have to stand for their rights.
For me, I didn't feel any discrimination on my education and my scholarship. Also, I've been study outside the country alone with nobody with me. And also, when I have all of my position, there is no discrimination. It is by the qualification and competency. How you do, how is your performance, how you achieved. This is the
Deciding factor.
Yeah, the main factor that they choose you.
Merit, can I say the one incident that I have happened in the United States. I decided to buy a timeshare where I was already there, and he asked me if I was married, and he said, you can't buy unless your husband also signs. So I said, I'm traveling alone, it's my money. So he said, okay, can I put you down as divorced? I said, no. Why should you put me down as divorced? He said, then widowed. I said, no. I said, it's my money. If you want to sell the timeshare, you sell it to me. Why should my husband sign on it? And I think when I put my foot down and he wanted to make a sale, he agreed to sell it to me. But this was the first time I was surprised that I want to buy with my own cash, and he wants my husband to say, okay.
Yeah.
So it was in the United States.
This is a privileged group, so I mean,
No, I have another story just reminded me. My daughter is graduating this month from George Mason on the 20th. So she's selling her car and everything, getting ready to go back home. And she was thinking of shipping her car back home. So she talked to a company, American person who was talking to her. And he said, where are you going to ship your car? She said, to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Well, have your brother or your husband talk to me, because you're not going to drive it there. Come on. I mean, so it's kind of stupid, sometimes, because, you're not helping like this. You should take us as, everybody's asking Saudi women why you are not driving, why driving is not allowed in Saudi Arabia. And when it comes to shipment from America to Saudi Arabia, they are asking for the husband or for the brother to give the details.
it's actually amazing. Right, thank you. Questions? I think we've actually gone through. So, go on. 'Cause
Hi, I'm Dr. Shay Garrison from Vital Voices Global Partnership. I had the honor of interviewing Dr. Lubna in Kuwait on my research on Kuwaiti women's labor force participation. So I wanted to ask you a question, Dr. Lubna. It's a small question, but I know that Kuwaiti women are very highly educated. And it is true, as you said, that there are many more women in these schools of engineering and science than there are men. And in fact, more women in the university in general in Kuwait. Do you think, and I'm truly asking you this question, is that at all affected by some constraints still on women leaving Kuwait on their own to be educated? Or is it just simply that women really are seeking education more than men?
Well, first, Miret, when you spoke about international organizations, Vital Voices was one of the first organizations that gave leadership training. And of the 9 women that I got, 2 entered parliament. So it was very effective training. No, I don't think it's because even in the United States and in the different countries where we have scholarships, there are more women applying than men. So I think women are more ambitious, and they know that the more education they have, the better job opportunities they have. And I think it's not because they have to stay home, it's because they want to have high degrees. 30% of women in the labor force have graduate degrees compared to 15% of the men.
wow.
Hi, my name's Joelle. I'm a consultant at Booz Allen, just next door. And my question is about, for anyone who would like to answer, when you guys are working with international organizations or working bilaterally with Western countries, what is the main obstacle to some of the I guess, opportunities or initiatives for female participation, whether it be kind of like a lack of understanding of Gulf society or something else. I'd be curious to hear what you guys' opinions are.
Well, for me, being a Saudi woman working in an international organization, one of the things that, I always say if I get $1 whenever I ask why don't women drive in Saudi Arabia, I would be a millionaire. So, bringing these issues always in front of our face, it showed us that we are not successful yet. You didn't do anything yet. On the other hand, we have achieved a lot of accomplishment in different areas, and areas that were priorities to me. I mean, if you were asking me about driving, it will come maybe number 9 or 10 in my list. Number 1 was health empowerment. Number 2 was education. A lot of priorities that I do have. But when I see the rest of the world is ignoring all these successes that we are having and focusing only in one, less fortunate area that we are still working on, that kind of bother me. The other thing is, I think it's for women in general. When you interview for a job, they assume that the man is good from his CV. But the woman has to prove herself that she is good. Even if she has a good CV, she has to have more things to support their decision whether they will take her or not, because she is a woman. On the other hand, some people are just taking me being Saudis and being female. So also it's not accepted to me. I want to be treated as a human being. Look at me, in an objective way, regardless of my gender or my nationalities or where I come from.
Actually, can I comment on the same question? So I'm Saudi, and I work now at an international organization. My name is Uns Al-Khadra, and I'm Saudi, and I work at an international organization here in the US. And my biggest challenge is stereotype. They first of all, like after a few months, they told me, "Oh, you're not an elitist Saudi wealthy girl." I was like, "Why does every Saudi has to be a wealthy person?" And then later on, they assumed that I'm running away from Saudi because I live here. And I was like, no, it's just an opportunity. And I want to go back. It took me so long to convince them to come there and visit and meet Saudis, and they were all impressed. I think the issue with people here, not everybody, few groups, is they built their image about Saudi and the GCC from the media, rather from doing proper research or going and visiting and seeing it. Which creates a huge gap in understanding. And doing work, I tell them, they don't want to understand. They refuse to understand how the GCC work, and they always criticize it because it's not like the US. Mm-hmm. But we cannot apply the US laws, which American people think it is the best in the world, on the entire globe. What works for us might not work here, and vice versa. So I think this is my biggest challenge. People don't want to put themselves in the shoes of the Saudis, and they stereotype us.
So maybe this is something for you to answer. We talk about public perception or international perception, and all three countries are different, because when people say the GCC, different countries set up different markers. So is there something that is not being done fast enough? Is there something that still needs to be done on international messaging?
I think we need more training for women to empowerment them. Also, we need more communication and more efforts from the organization, community organization, to participate on give the women more responsibility, more respect, more chance to give her, as what Amal said, as a human being. Also, the international organization should work in this with the country by give them expertise, as Dr. Lubna said, exchanging the good practice, and also the expertise between the countries to give them more opportunity to train, to see what others do, to participate with them, how the global work goes. Another things, I think it's also the women want to have her clear mark on the community. Also in the government, we should give her a chance to put her mark. This is my point.
Thank you. So,
Meret?
oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
If I understood you correctly, you were talking about what women should do in the international arena as far as the GCC. I think it's the media tends to take the stereotypical Gulf women and portray them to the world. They don't show the women that have broken the glass ceiling. They don't show women that are now managing assets as far as billions, whether it's in Kuwait or the other countries. This side of the Gulf is not shown to the outside world. You know, we have women, we have a woman who has her own oil company, and she's excavating and distributing oil. Sarah Akbar, who started, she broke the glass ceiling. She started as an engineer. She refused to take an administrative job, and she went on the field. The National Bank of Kuwait, which is one of the major banks and has an asset of 74 billion, is led by a woman. See, in the end, everyone wants profit, and women give it. They're very good at it. So in the private sector, we have a lot of success stories, but these success stories don't tend to reach the outside world.
So I think if we play devil's advocate, what people would say is it isn't really the responsibility of the international media to highlight these success stories. It would be to your advantage and therefore your responsibility. So how do you think you can make that happen?
I think it is our media's responsibility, for one. I myself have made 3 documentaries on women in science and technology, which we showed to the Congress of Women in Science, as well as women breaking the glass ceiling. And it's available on our website. And now Kuwait is in the process of making a whole series, which is called New Kuwait, in which they have shown different faces of Kuwait, not just women, men and women, changing Kuwait towards a better future. So I think it's our media's responsibility more than the international. But I wish the international media would not just choose the gritty, bad side of our societies to make the headlines, because that's not the true picture.
Okay, thank you.
I totally agree that we need to reach out to the rest of the world and to show them the true reality of Saudi females or Saudi Arabia. And to do so, we had an electronic platform. It's called Salam for Cultural Dialogue. It's Salam, SALAM, number 4 CC. This is the account, and you can find it on Twitter or on Snapchat, on website, where we have short movies about Saudi Arabia, short movies about females in Saudi Arabia, education. And we have one program which I really like. It's Ask Saudis. When the Saudi students here in America, they mingled with American people, and they asked them to ask them about Saudi Arabia, and they gave answers. So we are trying hard, and we are doing our best to reach out to the rest of the world and to tell them what we are doing. I totally agree. It's not the responsibility of the international media to come and ask. They will just get whatever comes out to them, so whether it's negative or positive. So we have to highlight and to reach out to international media.
Thank you. So is there a question from the audience? Please, okay, please.
Thank you. My name is Noera Ayaz. I'm an attorney and director of Women in Islam Incorporated. My question is, I really enjoyed hearing about the major, I would say, empowering stories that I've heard from all 3 of you. My question is, in the field of faith and religion, are your countries, or are there any initiatives in your countries to empower women in the sphere of religious leadership and faith-based leadership?
In Saudi Arabia, we are working hard now to have a female and the highest هيئة كبار العلماء. How do you say it in English?
Institute of Higher Scholars.
Yes, we are now trying to have ladies representing us there, and we have now lawyers, and maybe in a few years we'll have judges, especially for family affairs cases. So we are working on this field, but we will not have imam or.
In Qatar, we have really a good efforts. We have 2 judges and maybe 19 lawyers. An amount of the publication of Qatar, it is a big. Also, we have the Center of Religion Dialogues, and the vice president for it is a woman, Dr. Asha Al-Mannai. I think we do something good. The initiative of the Center of Religion Dialogue, it's have really a good program. They have a conference, annual conference. There are participate in it from all the world, different religion, and I think it's a good chance to have a dialogue with other countries and other religions.
In Kuwait, we have a ministry for religious affairs, and there are many women there. But coming back to the center, we had some training for religious leaders to promote, let's say, better understanding of person status laws, and to promote more understanding and tolerance towards women getting more rights. For I think it's really, how do you interpret religion? And there the problem is not just with men, it's also sometimes with women. So the interpretation of religion is very important. Kuwait, alhamdulillah, we have a lot of religious tolerance of other religions besides Islam. But yes, we do need to train more people to show that religion cannot be taken out of context. You know, when you come to different issues, and if I started saying the issues, there would be another conference. But there are issues that we need to have men and women understand that it cannot be taken out of context, that the Quran itself promotes understanding and tolerance, but you know how each one will take what serves their purpose. So that kind of things we are introducing through the Awqaf ministry, and also having dialogue between men and women, and especially youth, because we are completely against extremism. And we are trying to show that religion is tolerance. It's a private matter. It should not be turned into a political issue.
If I may add something, on April 23rd, we had a huge ceremony in Saudi Arabia where 5 women were awarded, being distinguished women, Prince Naif Award for Distinguished Women. One of them was Dr. Suhaila Zain Al-Abidin. She is an Islamic scholar. She had 192 research on Islamic issues, and especially with concentration of women rights in Islam. She is also a member of the International Organization for Islamic Scholars. So she is, I think, a good example of an Islamic leader in Saudi Arabia.
Thank you. So that allows me to ask one final question of all the panelists, because we have to wrap up soon. If you can tell me in each of your countries what you view as the greatest possible potential for women's empowerment and the biggest obstacle to that potential. Would you like to start?
Myself, okay. I think the potential is that women are now reaching as far as economically to high positions where they are economically empowered, but the challenge is the women in leadership positions are still only 10%, and we think that that's not giving them equal opportunity. So, and as far as you know, those in decision making are the ones that come out with the policies and law. So that is the biggest challenge, is women in leadership positions in the government sector. And otherwise, I think women are very, how do you say, economically empowered, legally empowered. Women as lawyers are very effective, but women in leadership are still lagging behind.
Thank you.
I think the women in Qatar achieved many things and achieved more in all sectors in a short period of time. But still, there is needs to more achievements in all sectors, because I think in engineering we need more, in financial we have, but we need more of this. In other sector we achieve really a high level of empowerment. Also in political we need to achieve more.
Thank you.
Vision 2030 for Saudi Arabia showed a great interest on women empowerment, and actually it's one of the main goals for the vision is to raise the percentage of participation in labor market for women. So there is a lot to come yet, and we are expecting the best to come. The main obstacle, I think, some women, they are the obstacle for themselves, you know, being ignorant, being, you know, just not ambitious enough, or being very weak, that they want to just go with the flow, wherever it will take them. I think this is the main obstacle. We need to raise awareness. We need to strengthen women and young generation to know their rights and to advocate for themselves, not waiting for someone to come and give them the rights. You know, they have to reach out and try to be as good as they can and fight for what they deserve and what's right for them.
So you think women need to empower women before reaching out to someone else?
Exactly. Mothers need to empower their daughters and to raise them on this.
Thank you. Ladies, thank you very, very much. We deeply appreciate your presence with us. And thank you to everyone for coming today. We've run out of time. If anyone has any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, thank you for coming.
Thank you.